Hello and welcome to day 70 of reading the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. See, I'm super excited today because number one, we are in day 70. Number two, we're making progress because we're in day 70. It's amazing, right? And I also have a good feeling that we're like 2 days read away from finishing Second Chronicles. So I'm super excited about that. Come on. So let's continue. We are continuing from chapter 24 for today. If you are joining us for the first time, you are in great company because we intend to get to Revelation by day 155. But today we are reading 2 Chronicles chapter 24 and a couple chapters afterwards. Now that we know what we're here for, let us begin. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you. We thank you because you are the Spirit and it is life. We thank you because your word changes us every time that we read it. And we thank you because you're making progress in reading it. Amen. Amen. Let's continue from chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada, the priest. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He called together the priests and Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now." But the Levites did not act at once. Therefore the king summoned Jehoiada the chief priest and said to him, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the task imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the covenant law?" Now the sons of that wicked woman, Athaliah, had broken into the temple of God and had used even its sacred objects for the Baals. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside, at the gate of the temple of the Lord. A proclamation was then issued in Judah and Jerusalem that they should bring to the Lord the tax that Moses, the servant of God, had required of Israel in the wilderness. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials, and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and carry it back to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to those who carried out the work required for the temple of the Lord. They hired masons and carpenters to restore the Lord's temple, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. The men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairs progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of God according to its original design and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the rest of the money to the king and Jehoiada, and with it were made articles for the Lord's temple, articles for the service and for the burnt offerings, and also dishes and other objects of gold and silver. As long as Jehoiada lived, burnt offerings were presented continually in the temple of the Lord. Now Jehoiada was old and full of years, and he died at the age of 130. He was buried with the kings in the city of David because of the good he had done in Israel for God and his temple. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came on Judah and Jerusalem. Please don't tell me these guys revered the priest more than the king at the time and were serving God because of him. Okay, well, I get that now because Josh was how many years when he became king? 7. Okay, that makes sense. So now the priest dies and you all go back to Asherah poles, really? I'm sorry, I did not mean to start. I did not mean to start today's reading getting pissed off. Because we have read this story before, though, but now, like I said, in 2 Chronicles, they're going deeper in detail in what happened during the days of these kings. But let us continue. Where did we stop? Okay. Although the Lord sends prophets to the people to bring them back to him, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. Let's continue. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father Jehoiada had shown him, but killed his son. Oof. Sad. Who said, as he was dying, "May the Lord see this and call you to account"? At the turn of the year, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder to their king in Damascus. Although the Aramean army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered into their hands a much larger army, because Judah had forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Judgment was executed on Joash. When the Arameans withdrew, they left Joash severely wounded. His officials conspired against him for murdering the son of Jehoiada the priest, and they killed him in his bed. So he died and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Those who conspired against him were Zabad, son of Shemet, an Ammonite woman, and Jehozabad, son of Shimrit, a Moabite woman. The account of his sons, the many prophecies about him, and the record of the restoration of the temple of God are written in the annotations of the book of the kings. And Amaziah his son succeeded him as king. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoadan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father the king. Yet he did not put their children to death, but acted in accordance with what is written in the law, in the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, "Parents shall not be put to death for their children, nor children be put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin." Amaziah called the people of Judah together and assigned them according to their families and commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Judah and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20 years old or more and found that there were 300,000 men fit for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of God came to him and said, "Your Majesty, these troops from Israel must not march with you, for the Lord is not with Israel, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, God will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or to overthrow." Amaziah asked the man of God, "But what about the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops?" The man of God replied, "The Lord can give you much more than that." Nice. So Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Judah and left for home in a great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Judah also captured 10,000 men alive, took them to the top of a cliff and threw them down so that all were dashed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops that Amaziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided towns belonging to Judah, from Samaria to Beth Horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods of the people of Seir. He set them up as his own gods, bowed down to them, and burned sacrifices to them. It's hard to believe that these people just do this. Also, the army that killed people on their way, I feel like that's just very petty. But then the Israelites, not that they're Israelites, like they're from Israel, and I want to say because of the kind of kings they've had so far, they do not consider, God. They did what they did without a just cause. It wasn't a good thing. Like I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is that it was a petty thing for them to do. It's not understandable that they did it because their minds have been depraved because of the kind of kings that they've had, recently. But it was just not a thing to do. And those 3,000 people lost their lives for nothing just because you're petty. You have been paid for. In fact, you're going back without they sent you to do something. They paid for you to do something. Then you don't do that thing, right? You already got them the money. You're definitely going to be paid for, trying to go even if you did not fight and everything. You do not lose on any count. You don't get to do the job. And yet you get pissed off and you kill innocent people, so sad. But we continue. The anger of the Lord burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, "Why do you consult these people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?" While he was still speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that God has determined to destroy you, because you have done this, and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent his challenge to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. "Come, let us face each other in battle." But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon, 'Give your daughter to my son in marriage.' Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall, and that of Judah also?" Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked that he might deliver them into the hands of Jehoash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Jehoash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Jehoash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 400 cubits long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, from beginning to end, are they not written in the books of the kings of Judah and Israel? From the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his ancestors in the city of Judah. Chapter 26. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was the one who rebuilt Elath and restored it to Judah after Amaziah rested with his ancestors. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 52 years. His mother's name was Jecoliah. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Amaziah had done. He sought God during the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. As long as he sought the Lord, God gave him success. He went to war against the Philistines and broke down the walls of Gath, Jabneh, and Ashdod. He then rebuilt towns near Ashdod and elsewhere among the Philistines. God helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabs who lived in Gur-Baal and against the Meunites. The Ammonites brought tributes to Uzziah, and his fame spread as far as the border of Egypt because he had become very powerful. Uzziah built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, at the valley gate, and at the angle of the wall, and he fortified them. He also built towers in the wilderness and dug many cisterns because he had much livestock in the foothills and in the plain. He had people working in his fields and vineyards, in the hills and in the fertile lands, for he loved the soil. Uzziah had a well-trained army, ready to go out by divisions according to their numbers, as mustered by Jael the secretary and Maaseiah the officer, under the direction of Hananiah, one of the royal officials. The total number of family members over the fighting men was 2,600. Under their command was an army of 307,500 men, trained for war. A powerful force to support the king against his enemies. Uzziah provided shields, spears, helmets, coats of armor, bows, and sling stones for the entire army. In Jerusalem, he made devices invented for use on the towers and on the corner defenses so that soldiers could shoot arrows and hurl large stones from the walls. His fame spread far and wide, and he was greatly helped until he became powerful. But after Uzziah became powerful, his pride led to his downfall. He was unfaithful to the Lord his God and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Azariah the priest, with 8 other courageous priests of the Lord, followed him in. They confronted King Uzziah and said, "It is not right for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord. That is for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, who have been consecrated to burn incense. Leave the sanctuary, for you have been unfaithful, and you will not be honored by the Lord God." Uzziah, who had a censer in his hand, ready to burn incense, became angry. While he was raging at the priests in their presence before the incense altar in the Lord's temple, leprosy broke out on his forehead. When Azariah the chief priest and all the other priests looked at him, they saw that he had leprosy on his forehead. So they hurried him out. Indeed, he himself was eager to leave, because the Lord had afflicted him. King Uzziah had leprosy until the day he died. He lived in a separate house, leprous and excluded from the temple of the Lord. Jotham his son had charge of the palace and governed the people of the land. The other events of Uzziah's reign, from beginning to end, are recorded by the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos. Uzziah rested with his ancestors and was buried near them in a cemetery that belonged to the kings. For people said he had leprosy, and Jotham his son succeeded him as king.
Hello, Bible reader. We've read for a while and we'd love to take a break. Please feel free to get a stretch, drink water, catch your breath, and we will continue immediately. You can also decide to pause at this point and then play when you are ready to continue. Now let's start the second half.
Chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 16 years. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father Uzziah had done. But unlike him, he did not enter the temple of the Lord. The people, however, continued their corrupt practices. Jotham rebuilt the upper gate of the temple of the Lord and did extensive work on the wall at the hill of Ophel. He built towns in the hill country of Judah and forts and towers in the wooded areas. Jotham waged wars against the king of the Ammonites and conquered them. That year, the Ammonites paid him 100 talents of silver, 10,000 cors of wheat, and 10,000 cors of barley. The Ammonites brought him the same amount also in the second and third years. Jotham grew powerful because he walked steadfastly before the Lord his God. The other events in Jotham's reign, including all his wars and the other things he did, are written in the books of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 16 years. Jotham rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, and Ahaz his son succeeded him as king. Chapter 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 16 years. Unlike David his father, he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. He followed the ways of the kings of Israel and also made idols for worshipping the Baals. He burned sacrifices in the valley of Ben-Hinnom and sacrificed his children in the fire, engaging in the detestable practices of the nations that the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He offered sacrifices and burned incense at the high places, on the hilltops and under every spreading tree. Therefore, the Lord his God delivered him into the hands of the kings of Aram. The Arameans defeated him and took many of his people as prisoners and brought them to Damascus. He was also given into the hands of the king of Israel, who inflicted heavy casualties on him. In one day, Pekah son of Remaliah killed 120,000 soldiers in Judah, because Judah had forsaken the Lord, the God of their ancestors. Zikri, an Ephraimite warrior, killed Maaseiah, the king's son. Azrikam, the officer in charge of the palace, and Elkanah, second to the king. The men of Israel took captive from their fellow Israelites who were from Judah 200,000 wives, sons, and daughters. They also took a great deal of plunder, which they carried back to Samaria. But a prophet of the Lord named Oded was there, and he went out to meet the army when it returned to Samaria. He said to them, "Because the Lord, the God of your ancestors, was angry with Judah, he gave them into your hand, but you have slaughtered them in a rage that reaches to heaven. And now you intend to make the men and women of Judah and Jerusalem your slaves. But aren't you also guilty of sin against the Lord your God? Now listen to me. Send back your fellow Israelites that you have taken as prisoners, for the Lord's fierce anger rests on you." Then some of the leaders in Ephraim, Azariah son of Jehohanan, Berechiah son of Meshillemoth, Jezekiah son of Shallum, and Amasa son of Haldlah, confronted those who were arriving from the war. "You must not bring those prisoners here," they said, "or we will be guilty before the Lord. Do you intend to add to our sin and guilt? For our guilt is already great, and his fierce anger rests on Israel." So the soldiers gave up the prisoners and plunder in the presence of the officials and all the assembly. The men designated by name took the prisoners, and from the plunder they clothed all who were naked. They provided them with clothes and sandals, food and drink, and healing balm. All those who were weak they put on donkey. So they took them back to their fellow Israelites at Jericho, the city of palms, and returned to Samaria. That's beautiful. But then again, an army does not go out alone. Somebody went out with them and gave that order. Who was that person? Pekah son of Remaliah was with them. So did he not know these things? Also, I am actually still a little bit shocked that the officials said, "Oh, take them back." I mean, okay, I'm shocked that they say take them back, and I'm also shocked that they realized that they were guilty before the Lord. Like, when you realize that you're guilty before the Lord, right? Especially in their setting, when they know, "Oh, this is what we've done, this is how we can set it right," right? Why don't you go ahead and do that? But no, you're like, we're guilty before the Lord. Oh, don't add more guilt, but then we're okay with the guilt we already have. Like, I would need more explanation actually, because I am happy that they send them back, because it was also written in the law that you are not to enslave your fellow Israelites; they are to walk freely, right? So that would have been top notch on their guilt. I mean, top shelf on their guilt. But let us continue. At that time, King of Ahaz sent to the kings of Assyria for help. The Edomites had again come and attacked Judah and carried away prisoners, while the Philistines had raided towns in the foothills and in the Negev of Judah. They captured and occupied Beth-Shemesh, Aijalon, and Gederoth, as well as Soko, Timnah, and Gimzo. with their surrounding villages. The Lord had humbled Judah because of Ahaz, king of Israel, for he had promoted wickedness in Judah and had been most unfaithful to the Lord. Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came to him, but gave him trouble instead of help. Ahaz took some of the things from the temple of the Lord and from the royal palace and from officials and presented them to the king of Assyria, but that did not help him. In his time of trouble, King Ahaz became even more unfaithful to the Lord. He offered sacrifices to the gods of Damascus, who had defeated him, for he thought, since the gods of the kings of Aram have helped them, I will sacrifice to them so that they will help me. But they were his downfall, and the downfall of all Israel. Ahaz gathered together the 4 nations from the temple of God and cut them in pieces. He shut the doors of the Lord's temple and set up altars at every street corner in Jerusalem. In every town in Judah, he built high places to burn sacrifices to other gods and arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of his ancestors. The other events of his reign and all his ways, from beginning to end, are written in a book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of Jerusalem, but he was not placed in the tombs of the kings of Israel, and Hezekiah his son succeeded him as king. I have heard the cities Aijalon, Beth-Shemesh a lot of times, and most of the times is when one king from a different place is coming to invade this place, and then they capture these places first. And something is telling me that these places are places that are on the outskirts, something like that. So, given the amount of time that I've read or mentioned these places in regarding to these wars that happened over time, I'm beginning to feel those places are not safe places. Like, if I were living in olden days Jerusalem or olden days Judah, I would not pitch my tent in Beth-Shemesh. Neither will I pitch it in Aijalon, or I think there's Ramoth Gilead too. But now that I'm talking about it, I think Ramoth Gilead belongs to the Philistines, and then Judah and Israel keeps taking it. So that's another place that is not safe, because these people keep coming to kill. It's more or less like we want to do something horrible to this other kingdom. Now, their capital is probably far off in the middle, in Jerusalem, right? But to get there, we're going to destroy all these towns on the way there. And then by the time they're halfway through, these other people come out and then they win them and then they go back. But these towns in the outskirts, they already suffered loss, right? So it's incredibly sad. If I were living in that time, I would pitch my tent in Jerusalem, because they don't always come to Jerusalem like that, They don't always, the battle doesn't really reach there except, in very rare cases. So I would pitch my tent. I'm sure the houses would be expensive. But I've been expensive in Jerusalem at the time because it was the only place that was safe. Other places were not so safe. Or maybe there were other places, I wouldn't know all of the places, but I know that Jerusalem was one of the places that would be absolutely safe at the time. If I get a penny for every time I've heard Beth-Shemesh, especially, they really troubled that town. But then again, I'm also seeing that these people are very, very tenacious, right? Very tenacious. Every time that people have come and they've destroyed these towns, right? You always read again that, maybe the king built it up or they built it up, and okay, I've never read that they built it up, but I've always read that the king built up this place or the king built up this place. But I'm certain there are places that the king did not build up, that the people themselves built up, so much so that someone can come and it can be recorded that, this place was destroyed. You get? So you can't destroy a place that's already in ruins. If they left the place in ruins and went away and decided not to live there again, then it would not really be much of a conquering, right? So, but they were very tenacious to always rebuild the place. And it is one thing to learn. example to follow. Betemashus. Oh, please, Betemashus in Jerusalem is safe, please. Not Beth Shemesh, please. Let us continue from chapter 29. Hezekiah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah, daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father David had done. We are going to have to stop here for today, and we'll continue from chapter 29 tomorrow. I think we have spoken a lot. But if you have been reading with us, you have made so much progress and learned more details about the reigns of these kings of Judah at the time. So yeah, win-win. Now, please, before you go, I want to ask you to kindly like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this video so that many more people can join you in reading. Also, if there was something that you found, awkward or something that you want to talk about from what we have read, do not hesitate to leave a comment and I'll reply. Thank you. See you tomorrow.